Hey there, guys. Alright, today we are back with some more Kings and Generals after I don't know how long since I last watched them. But this time we are doing the Cyprus Crisis of 1974, a Cold War documentary. Now, I don't really know shit about Cyprus, so we're gonna learn today. Before we dive in, though, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I'd love to join Discord, follow me over Twitch, and please do go check out the two gaming channels here on YouTube. One of them's Stream VODs, and then the other is edited content. Funny stuff. With that said, got nothing else to add here at the beginning. Let's dive in.
The strategic location of Cyprus meant that it saw constant invasions throughout its history.
Yep.
The Greeks, the Romans, the Arabs, the Franks, and the Turks all vied for it.
The Franks got over there? When?
In the second half of the 20th century, the island erupted into another war, with the local and mainland Greeks and Turks fighting a full-scale war in 1974. Welcome to our video on the Turkish invasion of Cyprus, also called the Cyprus Peace Operation, voted for by our
Cyprus peace up? I don't really think invading another people is a peace operation.
patrons and YouTube members. If you're interested in the history of this era, don't forget to check out our second channel, The Cold War. The link is in the top right corner. Shout out to Wargaming and World of Tanks for sponsoring this video. This free-to-play team-based game features over 500 historically accurate tanks and a strategic island in the East. Cyprus, a strategic island in the Mediterranean Sea, inhabited by a majority Greek and minority Turkish population, had been ruled by the Ottoman Empire since 1571 up until 1878, when Britain took control over it and formally annexed it in 1914. Cyprus was under British control until 1960, when the island proclaimed its independence. But the process leading to the independence of Cyprus was far from peaceful.
19... That was not talked about in anything World War I I've watched or heard. What the fuck?
Greek and Turkish communities had different plans for the island, and the British had to find a solution which would keep both sides content. Greek Cypriots wanted unification with Greece, enosis. Their strongest organisation was AOKA, which sought to achieve independence from Britain first and then to unify with Greece. Turkish Cypriots wanted the partition of Cyprus between Greece and Turkey, the plan which was called Taksim. The most prominent organisation of Turkish Cypriots was TMT. Intercommunal Greek-Turkish violence in Cyprus was regular in the 1950s to 70s, and the Constitution of Cyprus, approved by the Zurich Agreement between Turkey, Greece and the UK, did not bring peace to the island. According to the Constitution, the President of Cyprus was to be a Greek, elected by the Greek community, and the Vice President would be a Turk, elected by the Turks. Both of them would have veto power. 30% of the cabinet
Something tells me that did not work out well.
ministers and state officials would be Turks, and both communities would have high autonomy from each other. The Turkish, Greek and British armies had military bases on the island, and were the guarantors of its independence. Greek Cypriots were unhappy with the privileges provided to Turkish Cypriots, and a number of times in the 1960s, violence erupted. In 1963, the violence resulted in the death of 364 Turkish and 174 Greek Cypriots, the destruction of 109 Turkish Cypriot or mixed villages, and the displacement of 25 to 30,000 Turkish Cypriots. At the time, Turkey was on the brink of invading Cyprus to protect the Turkish population, but a US diplomatic intervention and direct talks between Turkey and Greece calmed tension down a bit. By 1974, the Greek Cypriot leadership under Makarios cooled down on the necessity of enosis, but Greece, ruled by a military junta, promoted Enosis and cooperated with local pro-Enosis forces such as Aoka. In 1974, the Macarius government was overthrown by Cypriot National Guard elements led by Greek officers. A vehemently pro-Enosis anti-Turkish member of Aoka, Nikos Sampson, was declared the president. Turkey issued a list of demands to Greece via the US negotiator. These demands included the immediate removal of Nikos Sampson, the withdrawal of 650 Greek officers from the Cypriot National Guard, the admission of Turkish troops to protect their population, equal rights for both populations, and access to the sea from the northern coast for Turkish Cypriots.
The only thing here that I do not like, as I say, as someone, obviously I understand, like, especially if I were to be a Turkish Cypriot, this line 3 here, I would probably be very much in support of. I say, as a third party witness in the future to this event, do not like this, mainly because while as I said in yesterday's video with World War II, the logic to reach this conclusion is valid and fair and very understandable, right? However, the realities of what can occur with sending Turkish troops, even though, right, like, it is so understandable, and I would totally be in support of it. Like, even my brain right now is like, yeah, I'd support that. But the other part of my brain that's like, that could only escalate the problem. But of course, right, it's either send in the troops to protect your cultural relatives, or do nothing, right? Well, I mean, these other parts here are trying to do something, but this is more also of this is a more solid guarantee of being capable of protecting your cultural relatives, right? And so, yes, it's just also that sort of thing. Like this line here is just, in my opinion, a guarantee of violence, which is unfortunate. But like the rest of this stuff, like, yeah, equal rights, of course, access to sea, yeah, they should have access to the sea. Withdrawal of the officers, absolutely. Honestly, it shouldn't even be like, this is such a tough issue with how this country is fucking split, and obviously as someone neither Greek nor Turkish, it's just like, I mean, and Nico Sampson is a bit of a fucking prick, so get him out of there. But like, what would the like solution be? Like, what would? Because obviously, the Turkish population is never going to trust the Greek officers from this point forward, understandably so, and the Greek population is not going to trust troops from the minority, right? And of course, that brings up the question that we see here of that we've talked about before, I believe, in other videos, where like, why are you afraid of the minority about being put in a position of power over you? You're afraid that they might act the way that you acted towards them, right? So, yeah, it's problematic. But but also like, we look at the historical relationship between Turkey and Greece. It's not a happy one. And so when the Turks did have power over the Greeks, it's not a happy story. So the Greek population would not be welcoming of that. So then what do you do if you can't really police this nation? Essentially, if you were to then have the Greeks watch over the Greeks and the Turks watch over the Turks, you are already then dividing this country into two, as it will be by the end, I'm assuming, of the Cyprus crisis here of 1974. But to avoid, let's say, trying to avoid splitting the nation like so, what would the solution be? A permanent UN garrison there, which I think is what is currently there. To be the Cypriot, police force. That then would feel like being occupied by a foreign power. I believe the Cypriots would probably view that as being occupied by foreign powers. So that can't go well either. So what is the solution? Perhaps there's not one.
They called on Britain to ensure the neutrality of Cyprus as one of the guarantors. Britain refused, and Turkey started planning an invasion of Cyprus. At the time, 117,000 Turks were living on the island, mainly in the enclaves in Nicosia, Famagusta, Larnaca and Limassol. The Turkish Cypriots had a 10 to 13,000 man standing army and were able to mobilize up to 20,000 men. They had control of the strategic Nicosia-Kyrenia highway, which made communication for Greek Cypriots with the north of the island more difficult. The main force of Greek Cypriots on the island was the National Guard, headed by Greek officers, with a standing army of 12,000 men and 32 tanks, having the potential to mobilize up to 40,000 men. Along with that, Aoka had 5,000 men, and the elite Greek regiment Elphig had 1,200 men. The plan of the Turkish army, Attila I, was to land in Kyrenia and secure territories including the Turkish enclave near Nicosia, Gionyele. That would be a demonstration of force, and there was hope that a diplomatic solution would be possible after that. If not, the Turks would press on to secure the northern part of Cyprus up until Famagusta.
In my eyes, the Turks are seeming pretty fucking reasonable so far.
The Turkish army was confident of success, since they...
Which is not how this situation has been phrased before, in my perspective as an American. When talking about Cyprus before, when I've heard Cyprus talked about before, it has typically been gotten through like the Greek perspective, Western perspective, and the Turks are sort of vilified in that. So this is interesting.
Considered themselves to be dominant in the Mediterranean, on sea and in the air. A naval armada of 5 destroyers and 31 landing ships would carry the amphibious forces, while the Air Force would drop paratroopers and supplies and provide air support for the entire operation. Turkey deployed 40,000 men and 180 tanks during the confrontation in Cyprus. Greek Cypriots had the Aphrodite plan, which aimed to swiftly attack Turkish enclaves in Cyprus as soon as information about a Turkish invasion arrived, in an attempt to prevent them from connecting with these enclaves. On the 20th of July, 1974, the Kakmak Special Strike Force Landing Brigade, 1 battalion of the 6th Amphibious Infantry Regiment, the 50th Infantry Regiment, and 1 company of the 39th Divisional Tank Battalion, 39th Infantry Division, the whole force consisting of around 3,000 troops and 12 M47 tanks, landed unopposed in Pentamili, a few miles from the main port of Kyrenia. 2 Greek Cypriot motor torpedo boats, the T1 and T3, attempted to make the landing more difficult for the Turks, but were destroyed on the morning of the landing. The first land attack by Greek Cypriots was made at 10 AM by elements of the 251st Infantry Battalion, supported by 5 T-34 tanks. The Turks managed to repel the attack, disable all 5 tanks, and advance. An attack by elements of the 281st, 316th, and the 286th Battalions, led by National Guard Staff Officer Lieutenant Colonel Bufas, initially forced the Turks to retreat, but eventually the Turkish 50th Infantry Regiment was able to regain the lost ground and force the Greeks to dig in. Elsewhere, near Nicosia, by the Turkish enclave Gionyele, the landing of Turkish paratroopers was disastrous, with more than 90 of 120 men losing their lives. 550 men and 20 tanks of Elphig began the siege of Gionyele which was a strategic point on the Kyrenia-Nicosia road, cutting the island from the north to the center. Turkish Cypriots were prepared for the siege and heavily fortified the area with defensive and anti-tank structures. They were able to repel the initial Greek attack, and the following counterattack by the 399th Battalion inflicted significant damage to the Greek Cypriots, with at least 4 of their tanks being destroyed in the process. On the 20th of July, the Greek Cypriot forces attacked the Turkish Cypriot enclaves at Limassol, Paphos, and Agaita Nicosia with different levels of success. In Limassol and Paphos, the Turks were defeated, and many were taken as prisoners of war. On the same day, the United Nations Security Council adopted Resolution 353, demanding all foreign military personnel leave Cyprus and calling on Britain, Turkey and Greece to start negotiations to restore peace on the island. On the 21st of July, Turkish destroyer Kocatepe was hit by friendly fire after deception by Greek Cypriots and sunk with all of its 53-person crew.
Oh damn.
The Greeks also suffered from friendly fire, as approximately 30 commandos died when a Nor-Atlas aircraft transporting them from Crete to Cyprus was hit by Greek Cypriot anti-aircraft guns. The junta in Greece understood that local Greek Cypriot forces were not strong enough to defeat the Turks. The 537th Infantry Battalion, a battalion of tanks, and 500 Cypriot volunteers were sent as reinforcements. In the morning of July 21st, all Turkish enclaves in Limassol and Larnaca were taken by the Greeks. Thousands of Turks were taken as POWs. Other enclaves of Lefka, Denizli, Famagusta, and Limnitis were also under attack. On July 22nd, the second wave of Turkish forces, including a tank company and a mechanized infantry company, arrived in Cyprus. The Turks attacked Kyrenia, which was defended by 33 MK Commando and the 306th, 251st, and 241st Infantry Battalions. They were able to take the town after losing 5 tanks. The force which took Kyrenia was able to establish communications between Kyrenia and Gyonyele. This was an important achievement, as firstly a Turkish enclave in Gyonyele was protected, and secondly, controlling Kyrenia allowed Turkey to send more troops to Cyprus. Greek defeats in the first days of the war led to the collapse of the junta regime in Greece on the 23rd of July.
Damn, that didn't take long. Holy shit.
Britain tried to restore peace by organizing negotiations between Greece and Turkey on the 25th of July. These talks went on until August 14th and did not achieve success. Turkey demanded the federalization of Cyprus, allowing the transfer of populations. The new president of Cyprus, Clerides, asked for 2 days to make a decision, but Turkey demanded an immediate answer and commenced its second wave of offensives on August 14th, Attila II. 2 more infantry divisions were transferred to Cyprus. Greek Cypriots organized.
Turks are not fucking messing around, and I respect it. I wholly respect it. They're like, yo, you fucked around, your the majority population fucked around and found out, tried messing with my cultural siblings, you better find out.
Their defense along the Troodos line, which left 40% of the island accessible to Turkish troops. Its western sector started from the sea and went on until the Nicosia airport, and was defended by the 11th Tactical Group. The central sector spread from Nicosia International Airport and ended at the suburb of Nicosia, Mia Emilia. It consisted of the 212th Reserve Battalion, Eltzeg's Camp Detachment, 3 companies, the 336th Reserve Battalion, reinforced with various companies with a total strength of 1,300 men, the 211th Battalion, and the 187th Artillery Battalion. The eastern flank consisted of the 12th Tactical Group and the 9th Tactical Group, and expected the strongest.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't see the point in telling us about the 112th Artillery Battalion or whatever. Like, that doesn't add anything, I feel like. Like, give us the soldier numbers, and perhaps their leaders, their officers. That makes sense. The equipment that they have available, telling us about that, that makes sense. Giving us the names of like the regiments and stuff, their numbers, that doesn't add. I feel like that doesn't add anything. It's just kind of fluff, word fluff. Like it adds runtime because now you gotta say all of these, battalion names and whatnot. I'm not a fan of it because when I start hearing that stuff get listed off, my eyes kind of glaze over and I just zone out. Because it's not important information to understanding the story of the Cyprus crisis of 1974. When that kind of information is important is if it's a specific battalion that has done, let's use it. This will be a hypothetical. Because I don't know anything to say. Like, let's say this battalion right here, by this road, this was the, I don't know, 369th, or the 420th Regiment, committed some atrocities against some, Turkish enclaves. Telling us that they then got moved somewhere else, I feel like that adds something to the story here of the Cyprus crisis. Right, because then that would, in a way, I think reasonably, a lot of us viewers, if we hear about a battalion or whatever that is visibly committing atrocities, we're gonna want to see them get killed. We're gonna want to see them lose. We're gonna want to see that specific battalion get wiped out by the Turks. Right? That adds something, I feel, to the narrative. Telling us in general, like all of them and whatnot, to me is just fluff and just so unnecessary. A lot of military history channels are like obsessed with that kind of thing, and I've never liked it. It's just, I don't know, it kind of also feels like to me some now of course I'm not applying this to Kings and Generals. Kings and Generals knows their shit. But when I see it from other places, from people that I do not know like anything about, that I do not know their track record with providing quality content, the moment I hear that, my brain immediately just kind of assumes that they're kind of false military history buffs, that they kind of just learned a little bit and are using these words to make themselves sound like they know more than they actually know, if that makes sense. That's one of the reasons why I don't like it. The main reason why I don't like it, though, being that it doesn't really do anything to the narrative structure of the story being told. It doesn't add anything. It just adds fluff and can cause people like me to just zone out. Because, again, it's not information that is needed to be known. Right? Is it nice information to know for, like, military history buffs? Yeah. But I think for a video like this and the story of the Cyprus crisis of 1974, that information is just not needed.
Turkish attack. The total size of the Greek forces numbered at around 20,000 men, with 21 T-34 tanks. Turkish forces consisted of 40,000 men, mainly in the 28th and 39th Infantry Divisions, one armoured regiment, with one tank battalion and one mechanised infantry battalion from the 5th Armoured Brigade, the Turkish regiment on Cyprus, reinforced with one parachute battalion and one battalion from the 50th Regiment, one commando brigade, one paratrooper brigade, 60 to 200 tanks, 200 APCs, and 120 field guns. Added to them were the remaining 5 Turkish Cypriot regiments with 19 battalions. Turkey's target was to connect with Turkish enclaves in Famagusta and Limnitis. Attila II started with the Turkish 39th Division attacking the Mia Milia defensive line, defended by the 399th Battalion. The Turks were able to push through, and together with the 241st Battalion, the Greek Cypriots fell back to Famagusta. In the central sector, the Turks were met with heavy resistance and their advance was limited. On the 15th of August, only 341st Battalion, with 3 T-34 tanks, resisted the Turkish advance, while the rest of the 12th Tactical Group retreated to Larnaca. By evening, Turkish forces entered Famagusta. The Turkish 28th Division advanced 6 kilometers in the western sector on that day as well. On August 16th, the Turks reached Morphu and Limnitis. Thus, the aim of the Attila II offensive was achieved. Turkey's campaign in Cyprus led to the occupation of 40% of the island. The island was divided by the so-called Green Line. Greek refugees, amounting to 160,000 people, left for the Greek-controlled parts of Cyprus, while Turkish refugees moved to the part controlled by Turkey. During the war, the Turks lost up to 3,500 men, while Greek losses amounted to 6,000 men. Subsequently, the Turks declared the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which is not recognized by the international community. To this day, Cyprus remains divided, despite numerous attempts to reach an agreement.
Yeah, that's not. I don't think they're gonna reach an agreement.
The videos in full 3D are extremely difficult, expensive, and...
Oh, is that where they're ending it? Ow. Dang. I wanted to hear. Oh, maybe they'd talk more about it, but I guess not. All right. This was the Cyprus Crisis of 1974, Cold War documentary by Kings and Generals. This was all right. I thought it was really good in the beginning. Like the first, half of the video was pretty. I feel like pretty solid. I felt like it was really well paced in the beginning, but then towards the end here, especially in these last couple minutes, things started feeling like sped up, and I'm kind of left now feeling like, oh, there's not more in the sense that I feel like they kind of left the rest of the crisis kind of unspoken about. Like, obviously there is no resolution, but I wouldn't have minded them talking how they were kind of in the beginning about the build up to the crisis of 1974. I would have liked them to talk about the how we got to the Green Line, and these zones of British control and stuff like that. I feel like those should have been how we got to this kind of static line and stuff, and maybe a little bit about the tensions remaining or whatever, or lingering since then. But they kind of just were like, and this is how the nation is now. This is how the island is today. Bye. That's kind of how it felt to me. So overall, this was okay. I think Kings and Generals has done better videos. But it's still not bad. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.